Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy Seeley, president of Seeley Test Pros and Leap, helping students to succeed in all kinds of tests from 8th grade to grad school throughout Ohio.
And I'm Mike Bergen, president of Chariot Learning, helping students with tests, school, and life based out of Rochester, New York.
Between the two of us today, we have over 60 years of experience at the highest levels of the test preparation and supplemental education industries.
We both love to talk and learn about the latest issues in education, testing, and admissions. So let's get down to tests and the rest. The fascinating topic we want to explore today is why college flash isn't fit. But first, let's meet our special guest, Ann Cadwallader.
Ann Cadwallader, founder of My University Coach, has worked in education for over 35 years and has guided students through the college admissions process as an independent educational consultant for nearly 2 decades. She holds a BS from Stanford University and an MBA from the University of Minnesota, and in 2020 earned the Certified Educational Planner designation. She has personally visited over 200 colleges' campuses, giving her firsthand insight into a wide range of schools and student experiences. Known for her calm, strategic approach, she is dedicated to reducing stress for both students and parents and helping families make smart, intentional choices so students can tell their story with confidence and clarity. Welcome.
Fun to be here.
It is fun to have you back, and not only is this going to be a rather amusing conversation about college admissions, but it's just great to catch up with you. You've been on the show before. For listeners who are following along, you appeared in episode 670 to discuss intentionality on the road to college. Before we dive into why college flash isn't fit, we'd love to hear about what you've been up to, who you are, what you do. Tell us everything, please.
Well, I'm not going to quite tell you everything, but since diving into intentionality, I've had a little more intention with my own life. I am still working with kids, 9 through 12, primarily focused on the college process. I dabble a little in the test prep.
You do a little test prep too. That's right.
Quite keep up with the two of you, so
that's why we like you.
Exactly. So staying focused really on the whole process, and it really hit me this spring as I was watching my kids as they were getting in and occasionally getting rejected from some of their schools, kind of watching them go through the process of making that final pick and go, okay, who's going to get me? And at the same time, I entered the dating arena that I had been out of for a little bit. And I started to notice some pretty interesting crossovers. And so that's what I'm excited to talk about today.
And you wrote an article about it. Flash isn't fit, what dating reminded me about college admissions.
I did write an article about it. It was quite fun.
Amy, this is not the first time we've touched on the parallels between dating and college admissions before.
It is not. And it's every time it comes up, it is amazing when you start to look at like, oh, there are so many parallels. So I'm excited for us to dive into, well, as always, I'm excited to talk about it.
Excellent.
So, since we've obviously had conversations before about how dating and college admissions can have parallels, when you say flash isn't fit, can you tell us what does it mean to say that?
Absolutely. So kind of big picture for me, flash is what gets your attention and fit is what actually sustains your personal development. So in dating, first thing you notice, somebody's profile picture, right? If they're attractive, you swipe one direction, and if they're not, you swipe the other. And then once you find a picture you find attractive, you feel like you're doing this deep dive and you discover, oh, impressive job title, nice education, seems to get along with his family. All of these things are wins, but just on paper. They really don't tell you, is this person going to be a good partner? Is this a good life choice to be making? And I see families do exactly the same thing in college admissions. They are drawn to brand names and rankings and beautiful college buildings and a national championship football team, right? That's just the flash. And my question to them is stop asking, is this impressive? And start asking, is this a place where my child could actually thrive? A school can be incredible on paper and still be completely wrong for a particular student because impressive characteristics are not necessarily relevant to an individual student.
Absolutely. I'll take this metaphor a step further and talk about when you're looking at that picture, you're looking at a prospective partner or just say date, right? It's quite common if the superficial aspects are pleasing to start telling stories about why the other factors don't matter so much.
Yes.
Right. And so if a student, say, visits a school and they fall in love with the campus, they might be saying, well, they don't offer the major that I'm looking for, but I could make it work. Right. How many times in both arenas do people say, I
I
could
can make it
make it
work.
work?
Absolutely. Yes, yes. That's it exactly.
Yeah, well, I think it's the idea is you get impressed by things. And so all of a sudden, like you kind of wrap your head around what that all means. Why do you think families, like students, families, because obviously sometimes it's parents and students where this happens, why do you think they get pulled to what looks impressive when they're trying to create that college list?
I think it's human nature because when we see something highly ranked or something pretty, then we assume it must be better. And what we've
Mhm.
done here is we've let somebody else make the decision for us. And it feels good to sort of let those experts choose our path, right? And the problem is that the criteria that somebody else is using is too broad for me, the individual. So that doesn't really tell us if it's the right school for my student or if it supports the kind of student that I'm working with that day. So let me give you a good example. I have two kids who come to me, and again, their flash looks exactly the same. They have 4.0 GPAs, they have high test scores, they have good leadership, they have a nice breadth and depth of extracurriculars. Awesome. They also both tell me that they want to do direct admit into a business school. I could simply give them the top 20 business schools according to XYZ ratings and walk away. However, when I start digging in, student A is Jewish and really wants a strong Hillel on campus. He also is passionate about golf and he wants to be able to play year round and have access to courses or maybe a club team. He is also 100% certain that he wants to study marketing and he wants business classes from day one. Student B says she's interested in finance, but that's because she just loves math so much. She doesn't really know if finance is her path to math. She also plays the piano every single day in order to de stress because she's kind of an introvert, and that's where she finds her energy. And she has celiac disease. So she absolutely needs access to gluten free food. These are totally different kids who need totally different lists, neither of which should be based on US News and World Report's rankings. So when I hear a student say to me, I want the best school I can get into, my question back to them is best for what and best for whom? Because if all they're doing is chasing the rankings without doing the work to understand their actual needs, they end up choosing from a list that doesn't make sense. And it's a list that is based entirely on potential and not grounded in the reality of what a student can or can't deliver to that student.
It's interesting that you referred to your students' attributes as flash as well. When
Hmm.
you say flash, you're just talking about the most obvious surface level attributes.
Yes, exactly. And the fun and the joy and the real learning and growth in this process is getting below the flash.
Yeah, I want to lean into this metaphor more, like go to the dating part, right? Because I think that students and parents have different agendas when they're looking at schools. And so the students looking at schools, that might be, the typical way that people are drawn to extroverted, fun, popular people. And students look at schools like, oh yeah, that has a great sports program. It's a lot of fun. I can hear great things. Maybe my friends are going, and they think about that. I think parents have a different perspective, right? As when parents think about who they want their children to date, they're often thinking about security. And so the stereotypical parent that wants you to marry a doctor, right, is it's not because they are fans of the pit, it's because they think about some kind of level of security. And that is often the parent, I think, that is drawn to the name brand school. It's not the school per se, it's the credential that might open doors in the future. You think that I'm onto something here?
Absolutely. And you kind of said it before. And it's if you fall in love with the flash, it's natural to start forcing the fit.
Hmm.
And the
To align
expression,
yourself to something that you really weren't before you started, right?
absolutely. And what I have to continue to remind myself is, and it's from dating, of course, is when someone shows you who they are, you leave them.
The first time.
So yes. So let's say I'm dating a really nice guy and he appears to check all the boxes. And maybe he is the doctor, right? He gets along with my friends. However, he is late every single time that we meet. When he shows me this behavior, I need to believe that that's who he is.
Right.
This is a pattern that defines him. I am a person who values timeliness as maybe my top three values. It is really unfair for me to ask him to change to fit me. And it is unfair to expect me to compromise to fit him. Neither of these scenarios are going to work out well in the end. And parents and kids do exactly the same thing in the college process. They think maybe that they can be the exception or find the exception. So let's go back to our kids looking at their business schools. They fall in love with the top 5 business schools and they go, maybe it's for my kid to be the only Jewish student on campus. Maybe we'll just have special foods delivered to the dorm room once
Right,
a week.
right.
It's fine that only music majors get access to the practice rooms. She can play the piano when she comes home for vacation. But nobody should be building a list on maybe because you don't want to count on the college changing for you. You should build it based on reality and on what you actually need and what you actually want.
Right. And that what you just said, they're not going to change for you. And it sounds a lot like people who try to change for relationships. They used to play the piano every day, but then it didn't work out with the relationship. The partner didn't love it. And suddenly you find that you've lost an important part of yourself. You
Absolutely.
become subsumed by this new relationship and you're not who you want to be.
Exactly. For me, I'm looking for somebody with an active lifestyle. Couch potatoes need not apply, right?
And so that's what you mean when you say defining your criteria.
Exactly.
So define your criteria in the search, whichever search this happens to be, and stick with it. Stick with your criteria. And I guess you have to be really clear then about what's most important, right? Like this student who, maybe if Jewish life is very important and golf is very important, he may find himself at a moment where he has to choose one of the two. He might not be able to get both, and he has to know which is most important.
Exactly. And I think the big thing is just the mindset change, maybe that defining criteria doesn't mean does this person or this college want me? It's do I want them? And this requires a lot of self reflection. And to me, that's the key for these kids. I want them to know themselves first and then start looking at colleges because I think that's what makes the whole process so much better. I had a girl in a few weeks ago. I've been working with her for a while. Weightlifting is her love. The gym is her place. It's really all she does with an extracurricular. And what I recently discovered, she will only work out if there are other women in the gym. She doesn't like to have any males in the gym. And I said, have you found out if any of the colleges on your list have women only gym hours? And she said, is that a thing? I said, I think we should make it a thing.
It could be a
And
thing.
Right.
yes. So we've started emailing all of her colleges, and the change in her attitude towards college, she just added 4 all women's colleges because she's so excited about the fact that she gets to make this choice. She stopped trying to find a place that would accept her and realized she gets to choose a place that's going to support her. And this is not her being picky. This is her taking ownership of her own success, which I think is awesome.
Amy, this conversation reminds me a lot of the podcast we recorded with Deborah Landisberg talking about power dynamics in
Oh,
college, right?
sure.
When you have power at different, when does the college have power? When does the applicant have power?
Right. And obviously, in this particular conversation, you have so much of the power when you start to research because you are in charge of like, what are my, what's my criteria? What's most important? You can, and then you seek out what those things are, which again, getting to know oneself and knowing what's important, then all of a sudden it's much easier to see if something doesn't fit. There is a term that we often hear in dating about kind of falling in love with someone's potential, right? So I'm curious, how does that idea of potential show up in the college process, and why can that be misleading for students?
Well, it's misleading in that you're looking at what they can do for somebody else instead of looking at what they can do for you, right? Again, the rankings make people believe, oh, if my kid goes to that college, my kid will get the best job. But it's not saying that they have the tutoring that my kid needs in order to pass the classes, or they have the gym that my kid needs because exercise is the only way that my kid really kind of stays energetic, or they don't have the right food or the right dorms, or that school is 2.5 hours from the closest airport and we don't really have a good way to get my kid to and from campus. My kid's not coming home for Thanksgiving, and that's going to be really hard on our family.
Yeah.
So again, they start forcing the fit because they've seen somebody else's view of what the potential was in that school.
Yeah. You kind of try again, once again, you try to make it that, oh, it's capable of this, it can do this, but maybe it can't do it for you, right? Like it might be
Exactly.
that, like,
Exactly.
for other people, it might live up to that. But in some cases, for you individually, that's just not going to be how it basically plays out.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us about, why do you think students need to define their own criteria, like what that looks like, for them? What does it look like in practice?
Well, I think the big thing again is they need to know themselves first and then look for what college is going to help them grow the best. Um, I think a lot of the dynamic too in this process is sort of the fight between parents and kids about kind of where you can get in versus where's a good fit, right? And I think sometimes kids get overly focused on the who's going to accept me. Where can I get in instead of where do I want to fit in? And I think parents, especially, then feel like the whole thing has just been one big compromise instead of really looking at it as a balance, right? And I think families feel like they have to choose between what they want and what is actually realistic. And my thought is you should just understand both sides, right? So colleges have their own priorities. We know that. They're building a class and they're making decisions based on their needs. It goes back to our statement. If colleges show you who they are, believe them and believe them the first time. If they tell you that they tend to accept kids with a 3.5 GPA or better, then you shouldn't think that your 3.0 GPA is going to be their one exception,
But you
right?
can change them. You can,
They're
they're gonna see who
Right.
you are, who you really
right.
are.
Showing you exactly who they are. So part of the process is understanding where are you a viable candidate? But that doesn't mean you give up all your own standards. It's a two-sided fit. Yes, the student needs to be admissible, and the college needs to meet the student's needs. If kids only focus on where they can get in, they end up somewhere that doesn't support them at all. And if they only focus on what they want without really educating themselves on the admissions reality, they build a list that just isn't viable. And this time of year, they're then pretty disappointed. So the goal is a list where both things are true. This school is likely going to say yes to me, and I would genuinely, wholeheartedly say yes back to them. And that's the sweet spot. And that's the match.
Yeah, that yes, though, has to be based on healthy criteria, meaning we see lots of students that want to go to a school because their boyfriend or girlfriend or best friend are going. They want to go to a school, like their standards, their criteria are short term and meaningless in the long run.
Yes.
I think so often it's the reflection. This whatever that perception of a school is, that flash. They think that flash is going to reflect back on them and say something about them, right? Like even in the dating analogy, if I'm dating a doctor, what does that say about me? Oh my God, I'm worthy of a doctor. If I'm dating, the idea of he drives a Mercedes, I'm worthy of someone driving a like there's a little bit of I think how like in dating, there's validation. And so I'm wondering for students, they really are seeking that validation that that flashy school will give them, which is something we see in dating as well, I think, too.
Absolutely. If I see somebody's profile picture in front of the Eiffel Tower, I'm like, if I date this guy, he's going to take me to Paris. How amazing would that be? And if these kids see a football team winning a national championship, all of a sudden they're like, and if I go to that school, I'm going to be on TV winning a national championship. Okay, good luck. Yeah.
So, how should families then balance like being discerning with this reality that colleges also are going to have their own priorities?
I think the biggest piece is parents and kids need the education behind it. So again, you can read some books. That's great. You can get on campuses and then start asking better questions. Like the kid with celiacs, go to the dining hall, sit down and order some food and look around at all your choices. And then go to where the freshman dorms are and walk 3 blocks in every direction. Did you pass anything that you could possibly eat? Right? And are any of those things open when you're hungry at 2 o'clock in the morning? So, again, don't just look at the brochure picture, really dig in. And, Mike, to your point, ask yourself what's important to me and how am I going to rank my priorities? Because you're right, you're not going to get everything you want. With life, with college, with dating, there's always going to be some compromise, but there's a huge difference between compromise and settling. And if you settle for the flash, you're never going to find the fit. And you're just not going to be who you want to be 4 years from now.
That's funny, though. The terminology you just used, I want you to change that paradigm because, right?
Yeah.
Don't people think in dating, settling is you're giving up on the flash that you want for something that feels more pragmatic? What we're saying is that settling is accepting something that isn't what's right for you. That
Correct.
really what that feeling of settling is supposed to be you're supposed to take what's best for you in the long run, what's healthy, what might look to other people like settling, but you're like, no, this is the right fit.
Yes, because settling to me is giving up on your values. And settling is not staying true to yourself as a person. Compromise is actually being a human. It's, I can give a little, I can take a little, I get that. But if I settle, then I have told myself that I'm not worth it.
Well, I think in all this too, it's about doing the work, right? The work of oneself, much like somebody has to do in dating. This is college, right? But the work is the research, right? Doing the research, making the visits, and then turning that mirror back on yourself to really be clear about, am I seeing this, these schools through a kind of rose-colored glasses, or am I really seeing what I think authentically where I would fit, where I'd be the happiest, where I'd be the most successful? I think that's really ultimately, it's easy to settle for schools with flash because you don't have to do the work. It's like somebody else did the work for you. But ultimately doing your own work, I think, can create the greatest satisfaction and the greatest end result.
I totally agree. Yes.
I love that. All right, listen, so do the work, everybody. And we'd love to talk about this all day with you. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
You are welcome. It was fabulous to be here.
If listeners would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is my email, which is ann@myuniversitycoach.com.
Awesome. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did. Be sure to join us for another fascinating topic and guest on the next Tests and the Rest.
Did you enjoy this episode as much as we did? Find expanded links and more for this and all of our episodes at our show page at testsandtherest.com. While you're there, be sure to explore everything the larger TestBright site has to offer, including real, expert, unbiased answers to the toughest admissions testing questions. Of course, we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe to Test and the Rest on your favorite podcast platform. If there's a topic or guest you'd like us to feature, just let us know and spread the word.